Hi guys, I'm here with you today through the use of video to talk through a concept and do some reviewing of active reading strategies. This might be something that you have done before and it might be partially brand new to you, so we'll kind of see as we go through. I prefer doing notes like this in the form of a video so that you have the opportunity to pause, to take more time to process, or to write information as needed. Also, if you're feeling too bored, it's going to be about a 15-minute video. You could take a break 5 minutes in and do something else to continue to use your time appropriately. So that's why I prefer to do things in this flipped sort of way. So first, in Schoology, you should be under My Document, and you should be working through this document that you see on your screen right now. And before you watch the video any further, you should go through and you should complete everything in yellow. And all it is, it's going through our different strategies, and it's asking you to try to define it and to try to provide an example of it. So you should do that first and then continue with the video. Okay, now we're actually in what's going to be the video going through the various active reading strategies. So I always think it's super important that we start with why we do this so that you have some buy-in, you have some understanding of why you're asked to be doing this task. So we're doing this because good readers stop and think during and after reading to make sense of the text. It also improves your engagement, enjoyment, and comprehension. Okay, if you just blow through like 30 pages of text or even 3 pages of text without really thinking about it, it's the whole going in one ear and out the other right away. It's taking the time to process that really makes it meaningful for you, and it's the same thing that I deal with when I'm watching Netflix. If I just watch a whole bunch of episodes back to back to back, I'm going to quickly forget what happened with them, as opposed to maybe between episodes, I take them in and I talk it over with my wife. We think about predictions, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we think is going to happen next, questions, things that were unclear. Definitely improves my engagement and enjoyment going forward. So it's important that we stop and think, and take breaks while we're reading to get the most out of the reading while it's happening. So we're going through all the strategies. There'll be slides that look like this. So where it says Connell's definition and Connell's example, this is the stuff that you should be writing down. You're probably in some sort of split screen mode right now, which is great. Otherwise, you might be watching this on your phone, which would be suggested as well. So the definition, using gathered information to make an educated guess at what is going to happen next. Pretty simple. A lot of you know predictions. You've been doing these for a long time. So my prediction would be I predict that the Vikings will win 9 games this year. I have further explanation that I don't think they're going to be great in any one thing. I hope that they play with some fire after a disappointing end to last season. In your notes, you'll see that there's space for video challenge questions. And this is a way to, 1, make sure that you're paying attention, but 2, also get to know you a little bit and break up the monotony of the video a little bit as well. So these are all going to be about you. So this is about sports here on this slide. What's a sports team that you like? Could be college, could be professional, could be any sport, soccer, baseball, football, basketball, or maybe you totally despise sports and you could write that if you wanted to as well. And we'll move on. The second strategy is about questioning, and I think we're trying to take this to the next level. This is probably more than what's been asked of you before. So the definition of a question is simply being critical of ideas in the text and your own understanding of the text. Good readers develop questions and they try to find the answers. So the hope is that you have a question and then you read to try to answer your own question. So we're going to talk about 3 different types of questions. One is a question for clarification. You're asking about something that you don't understand at this point. Level 2 is a question for the author. You're challenging the author's choice, intent, purpose. You want to know why something happened in the story because, it's not clear. You might have done it differently if you were the writer, if you were the creator. Number 3 is questions for discussion, something about which you'd want to hear the opinions of others. So it's open-ended and it allows for multiple opinions. So those are all kind of the definition section. And then we go on to the examples. So, question to the author. Why is it revealed at the end of The Dark Knight Rises that the cop's name is actually Robin? I'm challenging the author, the creator, on this. Why does it matter? Does it have some connection to Robin from the previous versions? Was it supposed to be like he was Batman's sidekick? I didn't quite get that, so I would ask the author why he chose to do that. Question for clarification. An example of this would be like, wait, who is that character? Is he the main character's friend, or is he just a relative? It hasn't been fully explained. Maybe it will be explained, maybe it won't be explained, but it's important for your understanding. And there are tons of things that you could ask in a question for clarification, but it's important that you try and think of something that will be useful going forward. And then an example of a question for discussion. Do you think the main character made the correct decision in kissing the girl even though they just met, and why? So multiple people could have different opinions on that. One person might say it was okay, another person might say it's not okay, and they would have different reasons why. That's why it's a question for discussion. Then we're on to video challenge question number 2. One of our previous examples was about Batman. Do you have a favorite superhero? That's what this one's about. I've really gotten into The Flash recently because of the TV show that I think is pretty cool. And he has a really cool set of abilities, and I like the way that the show is written. So, do you have a favorite superhero? Moving on. Strategy 3, clarifications. Taking something that was previously unknown, and now you know it. So you might have asked that question for clarification, and now you finally got that answer. Like, oh, I get it now. To win the presidential election, you don't have to win the popular vote, you only have to win the electoral college. So maybe after the election in November, you might have said, I don't really understand how someone gets elected president, but then it was maybe clarified for you that it doesn't matter if you have the most votes like Hillary Clinton did, it just matters if you win the electoral college votes like Donald Trump did. That would be an example of a clarification. Next we have evaluations. Evaluations are judgments that you're making about a character or a situation based on your opinion. Okay? So you're just judging. Okay, we do this all of the time. You're making a judgment. You're making an evaluation. So if someone said, hey, what do you think of the Twins? I'd say my evaluation is that they're an average team. They have great hitters, but only okay pitching. Or if someone said, what do you think of Luke Skywalker? I would say, I think he's pretty brave for standing up to Darth Vader and refusing to go to the dark side in Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Those would be examples of evaluations, judgments I made. One's about a sports team, one is about a character. Alright, now we're ready for video challenge question number 3. And this is, what do you think of Star Wars? Have you ever seen any of the Star Wars movies? Have you played any of the Star Wars video games? Seen the cartoons? Do you think it's totally dumb and lame? Do you think it's okay? Do you have a favorite character? Tell me something you think about Star Wars. Next, we have responses to the text. These are probably the most personal of all of these strategies because it's any thoughts that you have that are personal or analytical in nature. And a lot of times it's just a feeling that you have. It's an emotion that comes up. And it's like the way the man verbally attacked the woman really made me upset. That's what the picture is supposed to represent. It's a verbal attack. And so this part made me feel sad. This part made me feel happy. This part made me feel excited. As simple as that. Or it might start with the root, I found it interesting that. I found it interesting that the character chose to help himself over helping his own mother. Then we have connections. So connections are about bringing together something from this work and something else, the idea of a connection. And we have 3 different levels of connection. Maybe you've talked about these before, maybe not. So we have text to self, which is a comparison between something in the work and something from your own life, to you yourself. Text to text is something from the work and something from something else you've seen or watched. Could be a movie, could be a TV show, could be a book, story, play, any of those things. This character reminds me of a character from a different book I've read. This part of the movie reminds me of a different movie or TV show that I've seen that was kind of the same way. Okay, so those connections between different texts. Or text to world means something from this story to something in the world in general. So here are some examples. This character reminds me of my own little brother who is also very stubborn and refuses to do what I tell him. Okay, something, this character reminds me of my own life, my own little brother. That's to self. The futuristic subject matter with robots reminds me of the movie I, Robot. So one text to a different text, I, Robot. And then we have text to world. The way he just got a slap on the wrist for his punishment reminded me of what happened with the Stanford swimmer. So that's text to world. If you knew that story about what happened with the Stanford swimmer at all, that would be the same thing. And now it's time for video challenge question number 4. So I talked about siblings with the first example there. I have 2 older brothers, one who lives in Long Beach, California, and the other who lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Do you have any siblings? What do you think of them? All right, wrapping it up here. So what else do good readers do? They determine their purpose. They don't just read to finish or to get it done. They have a reason, and hopefully throughout the year I always give you a good reason to read, and that kind of drives you to want to read. But good readers always have a purpose. Good readers always visualize. They always see it in their mind's eye. You can't understand it if you can't see it in your mind. So you try and picture what's happening in your mind. Good readers reread when necessary. They don't just ignore unknown words. They don't just try to plow through it. They try and figure it out. And they also note, I wasn't really paying attention. I need to read that page or that paragraph again. Good readers also adjust their reading rate based on the difficulty, purpose, and familiarity of the topic. So there'll be some things that we read that should be interesting. You should read them quickly. And there'll be other things that we read that really take time and you really have to slow down to do it appropriately. So the last thing is to make sure that you answer the very last question. Do you do those things, the things a good reader does? Do you consider yourself a good reader? Why or why not? At this point, I should have addressed everything else in the document, and I went through all of the video challenge questions, and you should have provided all of your answers, and now you should be able to submit this document to Schoology.